Alright, so update 7 of Anime Vanguards is officially releasing. Today I wanted to talk about it. Wanted to talk about the release. I also wanted to talk about Anime Vanguards in general. The elephant in the room that I think we all deserve to talk about, because there's a lot of comments that I'm getting from people saying, do you think Anime Vanguards can make a comeback? Do you think Anime Vanguards is a dead game? We're gonna answer that, and I want to focus as well on things that should be new in update 7. Things that I think should be different moving forwards with Anime Vanguards. And these are opinions that I got after playing the other tower defense games like Anime Last Stand and All-Star Tower Defense X. So let's get started. So Anime Vanguard's Path of Freedom, which is the trailer title, is going to be update 7 of Anime Vanguards, right? Very exciting update. In all honesty, I'm super excited for update 7 of Anime Vanguards. It's really exciting because we've been waiting for this for like 3 weeks, right? And this is, Anime Vanguard's chance to show the community, to show the tower defense game community that, we're still here, we're still producing banger updates. This is Anime Vanguard's chance to really show the community that we're still the GOAT, that we're still the best of the best, and that we still produce the best tower defense game. This is their opportunity to remind the tower defense game community that they're the team, that they're the developers that produce the best stuff. And I think that they're not, disappointing on that front, because if you take a look at the maps, the VFX, the animations, the models, top notch. All of them are top notch, right? The VFX, the models, all of them are top notch. And even, the new units, they all look really, really good. We're probably going to be getting several game modes in this update, because we have one map right here. That's a second map. And then I think we have 3 in total. So this is 1, this is 2, and then this is 3. So 3 maps in total that I'm seeing right here. Maybe more that we haven't seen yet. And I think we might be getting 7 to 10 units just this update alone, which is great. 7 to 10 units is pretty nice. And then, we're probably going to be getting a boss rush. We're going to be getting a new story mode, but then also most likely a boss rush, as we can see right here. This is going to be releasing in Friday, by the way. And again, take a look at that. The rumbling. So I don't really know this. I think this is actually going to be your ability. So I'm excited to see how they're going to make this work. But I'm not going to focus too much on that, because let's say what you want to say about AV. Their updates, their trailers, it's always going to look good, right? The maps for AV is always going to look good. The units are always going to look good. The models and all that stuff is always going to look good. It's always going to have that, visual effect over these other tower defense games. It's always going to look better. But is it going to be different? Is update 7 going to be different from update 6, from update 4, from update 5, from update 3? Or is it going to be following the same formula that we've seen from those other tower defense, from those other updates that they've, produced? That formula being that, after you grind for the update, which will take you about 1 to 3 days max, the remaining days that you're waiting for the next update, you're just going to be grinding for rerolls. And I'm seeing that that's the gameplay formula that AV has. It's literally just grinding for rerolls and then grinding for the units. And it's great, but sometimes it kind of overstays its welcome, because it's good for like about 1 or 2 weeks. But when it comes to, 3 weeks, it becomes exhausting, because come on, you've already waited for 3 weeks, you finish that update in 3 days, and you gotta wait for the next update for another 3 weeks. I feel like AV has to change this formula and start releasing more fast-paced content, because that's what the community wants. And if you don't play into what the community wants and just do whatever you want, that will lead to your game dying, no matter how good you make these updates. I feel like the formula of AV should be 1 week of grinding for the units. It should be that there are some units that are grindy. There are some units that have a unique quest. Not, super annoying like Noob Vanguard. Just, units that are actually interesting. Units that have quests behind them, but not too grindy. So maybe about a week dedicated to grinding for units, and then another week you're going to be grinding for rerolls, preparing for the next update. And then when you're done with that and that gets boring, there should be an update releasing by the end of the 2nd week, right? I feel like that should be the formula that they're doing, because I think anything past 2 weeks starts to get boring and repetitive, and that is the number 1 complaint I've seen people make for AV, that these updates take way too long to release. And these updates feel way too repetitive because at the end of the day, all the updates get finished within a week. Most of these updates get finished within less than a week, less than 3 days as a matter of fact. And after that, the remaining 3 weeks, the remaining wait for the next update is just the same thing you've been doing before that update actually released, which is grinding for rerolls. That's why it feels so repetitive. So this could be fixed by AV, honestly, just by releasing units that are actually interesting to grind, like Songjinwoo Vanguard, but less toxic to grind. Releasing maybe 3 of them per update. Cool units, cool meta, and powerful units that people will actually want to grind for, and interesting quests behind them, and make the people grind for all of these cool units for a week, and then release another update, maybe after another week. So basically a bi-weekly update schedule. Right, that's pretty great. That's a pretty great formula, in my opinion, that Anime Vanguards could follow. Because at the end of the day, people play these games not for the game modes. You could have the most interesting game modes ever, but at the end of the day, it's gonna get boring after 10, 15, 20 runs. Replayability matters with these tower defense games, right? After 10, 15, 20 runs, those game modes are gonna get boring. It's all about the grind. It's all about the units. That should be the focus of AV. Making cool units, making the grind to get those units satisfying and, equally rewarding. And I think that's honestly a pretty easy formula that they could follow. Apart from that, I think that Anime Vanguard should also make units less reliable on Monarch. So, take into comparison with Anime Last Stand and All-Star Tower Defense X, Anime Last Stand actually is easier to get the 0.1% trait because you get a lot of rerolls from Anime Last Stand, which people really like this. But in All-Star Tower Defense X, it's actually harder to get rerolls on ASTDX than it is in AV. But in ASTDX, units are less reliant on the 0.2% trait, which is All-Star, than units in AV are reliant on Monarch. Most units in ASTDX are for placement, which makes them less reliant on the All-Star because, All-Star is just a 300% buff, while being a 4 placement will be significantly better for the longer game modes, right? Also, in All-Star, the All-Star trait in ASTDX makes units more expensive, which is a pretty great way to balance things out in that game. In AV, most of the units are just better with Monarch, and by the way, good news, they're already going to be working on this, right? They're already going to be working on making units less Monarch reliant. Most of the units are better without Monarch, so most of the units we're going to see in Update 7 are going to be better without Monarch, right? Which is going to be great because, for example, me, I didn't really, play Anime Vanguards for these past couple of weeks because I was on ASTDX and ALS, so I don't have rerolls, right? But now, I'm not as worried because I just heard that, most of the units are going to be better without Monarch, which is a really great thing to hear. Overall, I think AV, there's several things that AV has to do, and one of them is fix their formula. We have to be focusing, I think AV has to be focusing more on the units and the obtainment of units rather than new game modes, because at the end of the day, more people will care about units and their obtainment than the game modes that you create, right? Because people don't really play these game modes for the game modes, they play them for the units, in my opinion. And then also probably make the game much less Monarch reliant and start balancing around 4 placement units, because that will just make AV much less, Monarch reliant and probably much easier to actually play for players who don't want to spend weeks grinding for rerolls. So yeah, I think Anime Vanguards is actually doing all those things, and obviously update much faster. I think Anime Vanguards is actually, starting to do all those things. And I'm really interested and excited to see what they're going to come up with in Update 7. And I'll probably make a separate video when Update 7 finally releases and we get to see the new things that they're going to be doing. So, yeah. Peace out, everybody.